Juicy stuff. Okie dokie, there we go. We're recording now. So, yeah, afternoon, evening. Everybody, welcome to the July Welsh Azure User Group meetup. I'm on my own tonight, so I'm manning the gates, and I'm also trying to work through these slides. So I'll just let people in as we go. But yeah, first and foremost, thanks everybody for joining. As usual, community user group, the Welsh Azure User Group, we've been going now for nearly 5 years. We got our anniversary coming up fairly soon. Myself and Matt are the two people that are kind of running the user group, so please feel free to add us on LinkedIn, say hello if you've got any ideas, thoughts, want to speak at the event, please do reach out. We're on X as well, albeit that it's not as active in the technical community these days. But yeah, please do feel free, hit us up on LinkedIn if you've got any thoughts or ideas. Few housekeeping rules, as always. Please, everybody, do be courteous to each other. There are no silly questions. We're all here to learn and share ideas. So please feel free to use the chat window, but do please stay on mute unless you're invited to come off to ask a question, just so that we don't get the silly little background noises and things like that I'm sure we're all used to having at events like this every now and again. But like I say, the chat window should be available to everybody. So like I say, feel free to just drop your question in there, and we can get that answered for you. After the second speaker tonight, we'll be having our usual quiz, so just a bit of fun for 5 or 10 minutes, and there'll be a couple of Amazon gift vouchers up for grabs there. So please do stick around and take part in that. Yeah, but most of all, please do be interactive and enjoy the sessions that we got lined up for you tonight. And on that note, we'll be kicking things off very soon with Jake and Steve, basically coming on to give us a talk through how to get through our Azure exams. And I must admit, it's been a little while now since I've sat an exam since I moved over to Microsoft. So be a bit of a refresher for me, because I've been threatening myself to sit another couple of exams recently. So it might be a worthwhile effort for me to get up to speed with that. So looking forward to that session. And then we've got George coming on after Jake's session to talk to us all around. It's a use case scenario, basically, a resilient payment subscription service that he's built on Azure. So he's going to come and talk to us about that. So yeah, looking forward to that talk from George in a bit. So on that note, timings wise, we're probably looking at around about. I'll stop my little waffle very soon and kicking off with Jake and Steve in a second, and then George roughly about 45 minutes or so later, and then we'll do the quiz about 8:15 UK time. So around about 8:30 UK time, we're going to be looking to wrap things up this evening. So as always, just want to quickly shout out to the sponsors of the user group. And, I do this every month, but like I keep saying, these user groups are really, thankful to the support of a couple of key sponsors in the community. First one being Servant. They've been with us from the start of the Welsh Year. So, like I say, coming up to about 5 years now. They've always supported us. So big shout out to Des, Declan, the wider team there at Servant. If you don't know who they are a pure play Azure partner. Go and look them up, say hello to them. They're active across all the socials as well. And like I say, they do quite a lot to support the user group community across the UK. I know they sponsor more groups than just our Welsh Azure user group. So yeah, go and say hello to those guys, and big shout out to Servant. And also the same for CreditSafe. So we were fortunate to get CreditSafe on board and support the user group as a locally HQ'd Welsh business there down in Cardiff. So I've been fortunate to work with the team at CreditSafe a couple of times over the last kind of few years or so, and like I say, they've come on board to help support the user group and help form that little bit of a local community network of businesses as well. So big shout out to Servant and CreditSafe on that note, and at that point I think I will be quiet and head on over to the good stuff and hand over to you, Jake and Steve, if you want to share your screen and crack on with the first talk of the evening.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, John. Could you make me a presenter, please?
Yeah, okay. Had to do something after the last event where we had a few gate crash. Well, the last before, the one before, we had a couple of gate crashes that thought they were really.
Oh yeah, I've got that now.
Good fun. There we go. Steve, I'll make you, and George, I'll make you as well, just to make sure you've all got access. There we go. You should be good now.
hopefully that's showing up okay.
Perfect. Yeah, got you.
Cool. Awesome stuff. Right, we'll make a start. So yeah, hi everyone. Great to be here. Great to be back at the Welsh Azure User Group. So thanks to John and Matthew for organising. So tonight, myself and Steve are going to be talking about how to ace those Azure exams, or rather, how we think you can ace them. A few tales, anecdotes of some of the exam experiences we've had along the way, and really just to give a bit of insight into some resources you may or may not be aware of, things that have helped us, and just some advice and guidance really. Not exhaustive by any stretch, just we're doing this in the hope it might help a few people that see this. So who are we? Hi, I'm Jake. I'm a senior solution architect. I work for CDW in the UK. Most of my focus is on Microsoft Azure across things like Azure, transformations, landing zones, migrations, all of that sort of stuff. Do a fair amount of cloud native bits and bobs as well. Lucky enough to be a recently renewed MVP. So yeah, quite pleased that's still a badge I can keep on here. Do a bit of blogging as well over at jwalsh.co.uk. I'll hand over to Steve to say hello.
Hi everybody, my name's Steve Brown. I'm a technical consultant within CDW in their cloud team. My roles and responsibilities are predominantly infrastructure. I've kind of been leaning into the migration stuff of late and picking up some AVD where I can. Really enjoying it. I've been in the Azure space now for around 3.5 years. And prior to that, I was a senior field service doing kind of more break fix things for public sector, fire service and NHS and this kind of thing. Felt like a change, opportunity came up and I jumped on board, and that's kind of where I got back into the exams in quite a heavy way after a bit of a hiatus. So yeah, hoping to sort of impart some pearls of wisdom tonight. So thank you.
So yeah, usual stuff applies. These are our own views. We might be talking nonsense, hopefully not, but please do check documentation, all of that sort of stuff, just to make sure if there's any doubts. So what are we going to do on this session this evening? So we've kind of told you what we're doing here, but we'd like to really share our personal exam experiences over our IT careers. Focus being those Azure exams. We're not going to talk about all of the exams we've done, just keep it to the Azure ones. We'll talk about what works and also what doesn't. So that's a really important point. Things that work for some people from a training, from a learning perspective, work really badly for others, and it's important just to find that balance for yourself. So we'll talk about how we learn, we'll talk about different methods, and we'll share some resources, some tales, some anecdotes, and that sort of stuff along the way. You okay with this one, Steve?
Yeah, so I suppose it all starts with how we learn best and identifying the different ways that people can actually learn and apply the knowledge that they learn from a theoretical perspective in the real world. So first up, kinesthetic, which is just learning by doing in the real world, offers this gives us the opportunity to take the knowledge that we've got and apply it, going through like a click process, next, finish to some degree with some customizations, but actually seeing that and going through the process and seeing any of the quirks, this kind of thing, and some of the resulting actions. This is what makes us feel a little bit more comfortable about the process that we've actually just read about, which sometimes isn't always as clear as it could be. So that's my preferred method of learning for sure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's there's a reason that's number one on this slide, because for both of us, that kind of build it, break it, play with it, see what works, see what doesn't, is a sort of a real win really. I'll be honest, I struggle with anything other than that method. For me, actually getting hands on, doing things, testing it is just it seems to work for me every time.
For sure. I mean, the one thing I would say about the kinesthetic, if anyone's lucky enough to actually have their own subscription, always make sure if you're playing around, you delete what you build. Otherwise, you could end up with a nasty kind of bill at the end of the month, or burning through your MSDN subscription sort of fund. So yeah, just bear that in mind. So second up would be visual. So watching videos. These are breaking down concepts on whiteboards. I think most people might have probably heard of John Savill here. He's kind of like the de facto YouTube presence for a lot of these sort of learning videos, and he's got quite an extensive library, and we'll touch back up on John's website a little bit later on for some of the resources. But this is particularly good for beginners who are new to a concept, need it kind of high level explaining at a high level, and how things tie together. It's just good from that perspective. And the third one would be audio. So not one I've tried personally, but it can be useful for people that learn concepts and terminology. It's great for fulfilling time that would otherwise be lost not actually being able to watch a video or actually get behind a computer and actually do it. There is value in it. I haven't used it myself, but I know people who do and have, and they say it works really well for them. So this is things like, listening to it on a podcast or in the car or anything like this. So yeah, that can be useful too.
And it's worth calling out, these are just a few different types. Things we've tried. If you Google sort of different styles of learning, you'll find all sorts of stuff. But certainly, I think for me, the top one is definitely the number one. But visual kind of comes into play. For myself, it tends to be a case of subscription on one screen, Microsoft Learn on the other, and that tends to be how I've kind of got through all of the exams that I need to. Right. So yeah, we've kind of talked about different styles, how we learn best. I mean, this is an interesting one. Humorous Copilot generated images aside, but some people, myself included, I am very much on the left-hand side. Screaming at the laptop, sweating. Stressed out. I find the pressure really helps me, and that's an interesting point. When you're thinking about booking an exam or you're starting to revise for an exam, actually having a plan is a key part of that. And I actually find that just putting a line in the sand saying I am going to do that exam on that date really helps me focus. I'd love to say the focus looks more like the middle and the right hand box. It doesn't. It looks more like the frantic one on the left. But this is also a good example of how those different styles work. Some people really like the pressure. They like having a deadline to work towards. Others would prefer perhaps something more similar to the middle or the right hand side, where it's more methodical, more relaxed. And it's really important just to realize that it's not a case of one style fits all. There's something that's going to be right for you, and it's just going to be a case of finding that.
I think it's also important to point out there that it is quite likely that you're going to go through all three phases at some point. I mean, Jake was just saying that how he tends to start at one side of the spectrum. I'm completely the opposite. I start out quite calm and collected with all my thoughts and what I believe to be my wits gathered around me. But the truth of the matter is, the closer the exam date gets, the more frantic I get, thinking, have I done enough? Have I done enough? And this is perfectly normal and natural behavior, unless you're sort of like over preparing, quite obviously. But yeah, I do tend to kind of be more like the left-hand image there just before exam day.
And again, this is we're sort of joking about this, but there's no right or wrong here. For some people, that sort of pressured, I want to learn, I want to get through it quickly, I want to sort of really have a period of intense focus works for some people. For others, that methodical, I want to plan out my approach, that's more suited to them. And it's really what works for you. And the advice I would give anyone is just try some different learning styles, try some different approaches, set yourself a challenge with a shorter deadline. If that is a nightmare, if you don't enjoy it, then set a longer deadline, try a slightly more methodical approach. There's lots of different ways you could go about this. So a couple of tales from exams we found hard. We actually first gave this presentation at a Christmas user group, so hence the hats on the on the people there in the Copilot generated image. But without sort of listing off things in the exam, conscious of NDAs for exams and things like that, we just wanted to give you a bit of a tale of some exams that we found difficult and the reasons why. For myself, it was the Azure Network engineer, and I struggled with that exam because I'm not from a network background. I had to go away and do lots of revision, lots of learning to meet all those learning objectives, all of the things that are in the learning material for the exam. I had some experience with some Azure networking aspects, things like virtual WAN, firewalling, gateways, but some of the more detailed aspects were fairly new to me. I had to revise, I had to go away, do lots of labs, and it's just sharing that experience just shows that to one person it might be easy exam straight through. To others, it might be more difficult. What really helped me in that exam was utilizing some of the learn materials for some of the specific topics I was struggling with, and we'll come on to some of those resources in a little bit. But it's an interesting kind of mix of things that I was presented with, and yeah, the honest answer is I found that quite difficult because of the networking specific aspects. Over to you, Steve.
Yeah, so for me, my difficult exam was AZ 104, the Azure Administrator. As I was saying to John when I first joined the chat, I've been in the Azure space for around about 3.5 years now, and I started to look quite consciously at getting some certifications under my belt, getting some exposure where I could, and I'd just passed AZ 900, which was more of a vocabulary check, really, at that point. But the step from AZ 900 to 104 was quite significant. And the thing in particular that I found quite challenging was the breadth of topics within the scope of the exam and to the depth that it actually took you. That was quite challenging for me. I found that providing myself with a realistic window to study for set intervals daily proved to yield the best results for me. I took the philosophy of slow and steady wins the race, and I achieved this by building a routine, and I finally took the plunge, and I booked the exam for the end of June, I think it was, of 2022. So yeah, I mean, key mechanisms for my success boiled down to just being consistent, being persistent, and having someone to support me in areas that I struggled with most. In this case, it was actually Jake himself. So again, thank you for that. I just for what it's worth, for anyone who's actually got an exam on the horizon, if that's starting to stress you out, you do have the option of actually deferring the exam date, so long as you don't leave it too late. I believe it's 24 hours in advance. You can actually defer it to another day. So you do have options there. But just bear in mind that because we found these exams difficult doesn't mean you're necessarily going to struggle too. I mean, I found the network engineer one to be a lot easier for me because I think I'd sort of like had more experience at that point with some of the Azure networking than Jake. But your experience may be entirely different based on the kind of background that you're coming from. And yeah, just make sure you've given yourself enough time to prepare and you should be fine.
So we're just going to go through some resources now. Some of these resources will be things that you'd go, well, yeah, obviously. Others may be new to you. Others you may not have heard of. But so just bear with us. We're just going to go through these and just explain what they are, why they're useful, and all of the things that are out there to help as well. I've just got an interesting question as well from D in the chat. Yes, I agree. You do get some niche, unique scenarios in exams. Some of the case studies, in particular, really require a bit of head scratching. Sort of reading it through, working out what it's actually asking you, and sometimes, yeah, as with all of these types of questions, in any type of exam, to be honest, I guess they're looking for you to pick out the right information or identify that one point that actually changes, what an answer might be.
I dare say that it's not above Microsoft to actually put things like a double negative in just very cunningly to try and catch you out. So, I mean, when I've done exams in the past, one thing that I'll always do is I'll give it a quick skim first, and then I'll reread it in some detail so that my brain's kind of processing the high level information before I actually get into the nitty gritty. So,
it's it's the curse of the sneaky point in the text that that catches you out. So just looking at some of these resources. So I'm guessing everybody on this call has heard of Microsoft Learn, but Microsoft Learn is kind of the starting point. So if you're on this call, if you're watching this session later on, and you're thinking, this all sounds great, but where do I begin? Microsoft Learn is the place to do it. And you access that through learn.microsoft.com. I'm just going to share my screen on that and just give you an idea of what's available there. So just bear with me a second. Right, hopefully that is sharing a browser screen now. So yeah, this is Microsoft Learn. I've actually gone to the Browse All training. and I've selected the administrator track. And what you'll see is I can actually filter this down a little bit more. So I could select Azure if I want the technology area, and actually this will give me lots of modules I can work through. And you'll see I've actually started, working through some of these modules here. Now, there are a few different things. There are learning paths, which take you through a number of different modules. There are modules, which are specific sections within those paths. And there are courses, which are collections of all of these that take you through a specific focus, perhaps for an exam or something. So you'll notice here there's a Microsoft Azure fundamentals. And you have a couple of options when you go into these. You could use the self-directed learning, which is yourself going through all the modules, going through all the sessions, completing things like the knowledge checks, or you can actually look for a training provider, and that training provider will be a company that provides access to those courses in person or virtually, whatever it may be. When you go through the self-directed learning, you actually get this course syllabus. So when you actually start these, if I go into this this learning path, you'll see it's taking me through all of these different modules. So describing cloud computing, you can see I've been through a few of these myself. What's really great about these is this is structured learning. So it's taking you through it all step by step, and it's actually finishing with an assessment. So when you go in that assessment, it's giving you, questions that are representative of what you're going to get in the exam. It's asking you questions based on the subject area. So if you're looking at a particular, particular exam, particular or module that you're struggling with, or a certain subject area that's coming up in that exam, focusing on that within Microsoft Learn is a really, really good place to look. Just to give you an example of that, so if I go back to browse all training, and we'll go into here, let's pick, let's just expand Azure, and you'll see it breaks down all the services. So let me just have a look for Azure Firewall. Perhaps that's relevant for the networking exam. And you'll see, the exams come up, they have learning paths, and it's bringing up all of the things that are relevant to that specific area. So this is really good for drilling into specific areas if you're struggling with a certain topic, but it's also really, really good if you are looking just to get a complete end-to-end course that takes you through everything that would be in an exam, to really help you focus. Let me just switch back to the slides. Just checking the chat, we've got a couple of questions. Yeah, the question around having the browser read it, I think would just be for Microsoft Learn. I don't think you would be allowed to do that in the exam. Yeah, I see you've got that, David. So that was Microsoft Learn. So yeah, as you know, there's lots of training available, lots of different things you can look into. We've gone through a couple of example courses, so I'll share these slides afterwards, but I won't go through all of these slides because we've kind of covered that off whilst I was screen sharing there. One thing I do just want to touch on, the knowledge check is very, very useful. So the knowledge check is asking you questions that would be representative of what you would get within your exam. So this is a really good way to test your knowledge, to make sure that you're understanding how the questions are asked, you're understanding the subject material, and you're also understanding the type of answers and the type of responses that you'll need to get and give within the exam. Steve, you like taking GitHub repos?
Can do, but if I'm brutally honest, this is one I've not actually used myself a tremendous amount. I'm happy to defer this one to you, and then I can take the next one.
I'll take this one. No, and that's another good example. There are different materials out here that different people have used. So in the GitHub repos, if you go to github.com/Microsoft Learning, and bear with me, I will just reshare the browser screen. Here's one I prepared earlier at Blue Peter moment. What we can do, and let me just move the Teams bar and show you this, is we can have a look at the GitHub repos. And you'll notice in here in the Microsoft Learning, I'll paste that link into the chat in a moment, but you have lots of repos that are for specific certifications, for specific courses. So let's take a look at the Azure Administrator example here, and you'll see this repository is it says for instructors, but it's also really useful for you if you are looking at this as a student. So if we go on to the labs here, you'll see I can click onto this, and this is all of the labs that you would go through on this course. So perhaps, for example, if you've gone on the course, if you've done some self-paced training, you also have the option of going through these in your own time and just refining your knowledge. If I just pick one of these at random, lab 7, you'll see it gives me an overview, it gives me a scenario, it gives me a nice diagram. So it's really, really good for cementing that that understanding and just giving you something that's, you can do in your own time. Explains how to do it, go into the portal, create a storage account. I'm not going to go through all of this, but you get the idea. This is walking you through all of those labs end to end. And they're all the same. This will talk about securing it. This will talk about Azure file storage. There's just lots of different things to go through and loads of labs that are available. If I just go back, you could see just in this one course, there's 11 different labs. I'll just switch back to my slides. Bear with me. Okay, hopefully that's showing up. I'll let you have this one, Steve.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so with the virtual training days, this is a fantastic option if you have it available. This will this is basically like a Microsoft sort of like a course, as it were, that will actually walk you through, and it actually includes some labs in some instances, whereby you can actually go through some of these environments, these scenarios that Jake just had on screen there via the Git Labs, but as opposed to actually more of a self-paced kind of learn. This is actually led by a course instructor. They can be incredibly insightful. I've always found them to be useful. I even passed one exam and sat the course afterwards, and I still learned something new. So that they do have a tremendous amount of value.
It's funny you should mention that. I am doing exactly that this week. So I already hold the Azure AI. I think it's 100 certification. I've been doing the 102 course this week, and it's been really useful. And I've done that through the next resource we're actually going to talk about. But you'll see there's also lots of different courses available within the virtual training days. But it's just sometimes useful if you need a refresher on a topic, or you need something just to cement some knowledge. Perhaps you took an exam a little while ago. Perhaps you are prepping for an exam soon and you just want to refresh your own understanding. These are great. They're free of charge. It's a really, really good opportunity to take advantage of that, and also to take advantage of the skills the instructors have. There's usually time for questions. There's usually a bit of Q&A, a little bit of debate. Lots of similar people attending these, so it's a really good way to cement your knowledge and just prep for the exams as well. So yeah, just a screenshot. We just took this screenshot a while ago, but you'll see these are the types of examples and trainings that come with that. There's everything you could possibly want, all different topics, all different time zones, all different languages. So a really, really good resource. Really good point from Mark in the chat as well. Often you can get some codes for exams, so you can get discounts and things like that to help with the cost of the exams. So something I've taken, a lot of advantage of over my time is ESI, the Enterprise Skills Initiative. So ESI is something that's available to organizations that have been granted it either as partners or customers of Microsoft. There are a few different criteria, so that's something you would just need to check. But ESI gives you access to a number of different things, but three of them I think are really key. One is courses. So those courses are, for example, the courses you would see on Microsoft Learn if you were to go and attend an instructor-led course. So have a course that's 3 to 5 days, or of an instructor actually going through that topic, taking you through it. And those courses are a great option because they often come with labs as well. So for example, when you start the course, you'll be given a login for a lab environment. You'll have time to work through the labs. You'll have the instructor there to support you. And it's a really great way to approach a topic. Perhaps it's the first time you've done a topic. It's the first time you've used anything. That's a really, really strong place to start. There's also exam prep questions. So these are very similar to Microsoft Learn. It gives you access to kind of practice exams that are representative of the type of question you'll get in the exam, and a really, really good place to just cement that knowledge once you've done the course, once you've done the learning in prep for taking the exam. There's also training days through there, so similar to the Microsoft Events training day link. I think there's a little bit of crossover there, but lots of things you can get access to. And those training days tend to be kind of 1 day, 2 day, half a day type sort of sessions where they focus in a little bit more. So very useful if you are prepping for an exam. Yeah, really good point from John in the chat there as well. Lots of training credits that companies get. that you know you might be able to take advantage of. Perhaps that's vouchers for an exam, perhaps that's some Azure credit, whatever it may be. Yeah, a lot of companies not making full use of that. So if that's something you think your organization may have, yeah, ask the question and see what you can get. I'll let you take this one, Steve, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So a couple of key resources that I've found to be particularly useful over the last sort of couple of years that I've been sort of focusing on certifying with Azure. First and foremost, John Savill. He's you may well have seen some of his videos. He's built like a tank, arms as wide as my waistline, and he's incredibly insightful. So the full package of a true giant. He's I think he's probably forgotten more about Azure than I'll probably ever learn in total, but he has got a real knack for explaining concepts, using his whiteboard. He's incredibly insightful, very articulate, and an absolute powerhouse of a resource to use if you're actually studying. His library on YouTube is quite extensive at this point. So if you're looking at taking an exam or even a bit of a deep dive, I think he's done a few deep dives on things like Azure Firewall and so on. So if you're looking to kind of get into the weeds a little more, he's doing those videos as well now, and they are absolutely fantastic. I cannot overstate how good his material is. And secondly, one of the other guys that I found was another guy called John, but this time it's John Christopher. So John Christopher is an American. He's worked in the Azure space for a while, and he's a trainer as well. And his courses can be found on Udemy. I never know how people pronounce that. And he's got some absolutely brilliant material on there. And I think I used his material for AVD AZ140. I found him to be incredibly articulate, and he really takes you back down to the basics and layman's terms. And I really like the noddy language. Sometimes the anagrams and the abbreviations, you can get lost in the sentence with just trying to translate the language, and he takes it right back to a simplistic level, and it was absolutely brilliant. And there's some real context to the lesson he's teaching right from the word go. Definitely recommend him. So like I say, he's available on Udemy. And if you're very clever and you sign up for his website, you can actually win courses when he actually does an update. If you're the first to post, I actually won AZ500, the exam voucher through him. I haven't taken the exam yet, but I've got the voucher sat there. So yeah, it's worth signing up for that alone.
Two pretty awesome resources. Yeah, I've watched so many of John's videos, and the breakdown of topics, the clear diagrams. Yeah, if you're struggling with the topic, yeah, I would check out John's YouTube page. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Also, user groups. So these may look fairly familiar to you. We're here with the Welsh Azure User Group. Took this screenshot a little while ago, but you'll see over on the right hand side lots of recordings. So over on the YouTube page, these are also a great place to learn. There's lots of different presenters that come onto these sessions, lots of different topics, lots of different areas, and it's just, if there's a particular aspect or particular area you're interested in, it's worth just having a quick search to see if there has been a user group presentation on it. And perhaps you might find an event coming up somewhere, you might find a previous recording, you might find some slides that have been shared, but it's all a great way to just to boost your knowledge. And perhaps if you're prepping for an exam and you see a session on a particular topic or subject that you've been struggling with, again, that's a really good opportunity. Go to that session, learn something. Perhaps there's a question you really want to ask. So lots of these different community user groups are a really good place to also help with that exam prep. I'll hand this over to you, Steve, if that's right.
Sure, yes. So revision methods, I suppose, is getting into the nitty gritty. What works for us? Well, the bottom line is there is no kind of like cheat sheet, as it were. That there is always going to be some level of effort involved. First and foremost, rinse and repeat. It's a time-honored tradition of eating, sleeping, and breathing a topic until it's embedded. I think we've all been there at one point or another. I know that that's certainly one of the ways that I use to make sure that I've got something ingrained for good. And everybody said in the industry, if you don't use it, you lose it, and you do forget it very quick. And if you don't forget it, it might change, because Azure's a forever changing beast. So rinse and repeat is always a firm favourite. Secondly, the labs. Both MS Learn and your own, if you're lucky enough to have your own MSDN subscription, make use of the labs. They're readily available for you to be able to implement. They can walk you through scenarios. They can really make you feel a little bit more at home about where to find a certain feature. Like it becomes muscle memory. Really, really useful, especially if you're unfortunate enough to get one of the simulations in the exams, which I believe is still a thing, but they're quite few and far between. Third up would be collaborating. So revising with a friend, you can set challenges together. Having used this method, it can be very useful for focusing on each other's strengths and weaknesses, and really sort of like boost each other up as you learn. Fourth would be a mentor. So I've been very fortunate, as I've already said, to have Jake as my mentor, and I still go to him almost daily, I think, at this point, with certain questions. But having somebody there to help tailor your learning and exposure at a pace you're able to maintain can make all the difference. Having a seasoned expert to explain key concepts and being able to shadow you whilst you do things, and sort of point out where you might be kind of coming astray, can be invaluable experience. So definitely worth it. Next up would be goal setting. So it could be too easy to procrastinate about booking an exam, deferring until you have more time to focus. I mean, everyone's going to have used these excuses at some point. We've all used it. By booking the exam, you're drawing a line in the sand, and you're mentally committing to a timeline, and it helps you define a learning schedule as well. So, but like I've said already, if you do need to reschedule, you can do so up to 24 hours before the set exam time. So yeah, make sure you bear that in mind. And last but not least, real world experience. It all comes back to the kinesthetic. This is where your skills are really going to become polished, and valuable experience is garnered really, really quickly. So
lots of different methods. I have to say, for myself, the rinse and repeat is the doing that tends to cement it for me best. And then usually putting a fairly unreasonable goal in place just to give me the necessary kick. That's not a method I'd recommend for everyone. If you like a bit of pressure and a bit of stress, then that works well. But yeah, that tends to be what I need to sort of kick me into action. It's also setting goals. So I'd love to say this is what I look like when I sit down and plan 6 months of my life, but it tends to be more like a list of things I've forgotten to do, to be honest, that frantically need organising. But so how do we set goals? So for me, I set a date. I try and pick an achievable date that's reasonable, but also requires, I'm not going to say I'm going to do that exam in 3 years' time and I'm going to only do 30 minutes a week or something like that. I like to set a date that's reasonable but optimistic. So if I was going to pick a new exam, I might set it 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line to really give myself something to aim for. A schedule and routine also really helps. So as part of my role, I spend quite a lot of time on trains, doing travel to customers and that sort of stuff. And I find, just doing a bit of lab work, a bit of code, or watching videos whilst I'm doing that is good. And that I sort of schedule that into my routine when it allows. It's not always perfect. I'm sure as people know, sometimes trying to do things on trains can be a challenge, particularly if it's busy. But yeah, that's just what works for me. And have your own process. So perhaps you've got a list of these are 10 technology areas I need to work at to pass this exam. Write them down. Have a list. Make a process. Right. Every Friday, I'm going to spend 1 hour in my lunch playing with that piece of technology or trying out that service. And just defining that process can really help to set that goal. No, Steve, go through what works for you. I know we work in slightly different ways.
Yeah, I mean, we do differ in that sense. I mean, I tend to set the goal. I mean, going back to my example earlier in the slide deck, the exam that I struggled with the most was AZ 104, and I passed AZ 900 in the January, I think it was, and I didn't take AZ 104 I think until June, and I was putting in a couple of hours a day at that point. So there was a huge step up for me because I was quite new to it still, and I was trying to get as much experience as I could, but there was an awful lot to cope with. So yeah, like I say, what works for Jake in terms of he might be able to sit on a train, that's never going to work for me. I'm distracted way too easily. I like to lock myself away in my office, and just kind of just go into like hermit mode, and I'll just read and I'll watch videos and I'll just engross myself in everything that I possibly can. And I'll set my exam, but I'll set it for a realistic time frame. If I'm feeling semi-confident after I've given the material a quick skim, I'll say, all right, we'll put it in for 3 months, and if I need longer, I can just extend it out by a month or what have you, and you can kind of start seeing your confidence grow as you learn the material. So yeah, that's what works for me.
And Matt, just on the subject of sort of confidence growth, use the use the knowledge checks that are part of Microsoft Learn to help you build that. Because if you're starting out, perhaps you're starting out doing a knowledge check and thinking, wow, I'm only getting 50% on this. Track that, write it down. As you progress, you'll see that go from 50 to 60 to 70 and beyond. And that actually is really important, because you then, you start seeing your own progress, and seeing your own progress like that really does help boost your confidence. So a couple of things now. We've talked about kind of learning methods. We've talked about what works for us. We've talked about some of the resources that you could use. But it's also important to think about what will actually happen when you take an exam. And this perhaps to some people is like, yeah, I know this, but to others, this might be completely new. So if you take an exam in person, there are a number of things that you need to be aware of. The first thing I will say on this is we've summarized this. So please follow any advice, any guidance, any information that's given to you when you sit that exam. None of this supersedes any of that. But there are kind of three key things that are really important to remember. One is you need ID. So you'll be asked to take ID to prove who you are. You're not going to be allowed to sit an exam if you can't prove who you are. The second thing to be aware of is you'll be recorded and monitored. That's to make sure that you're not, reading some notes you've snuck in your pocket or something like that. And it's just, for everybody's benefit to make sure that the conduct in the exam centre is as it should be. Much like, when we sat exams at school, as soon as you enter that exam room, it's complete silence. So the only time, you would ever respond is perhaps if an invigilator comes in and says, your exam's over, or whatever it may be. Complete silence in the exam room. As I say, do check the guidance on that. It's really important just to make sure that you're following that, because that will be the latest and up-to-date information on it. Personally, for me, I'm not keen on on the day in-person exams. I don't like traveling for an exam. I just worry about the travel. I much prefer the home proctored. And I have my own setup at home, and I find actually going somewhere, worrying about trains, parking, whatever it may be, just doesn't sit well with me. And I like to take that stress out the occasion and do them remotely. So I'll let Steve run through that with you next.
Sure. So the home proctored exams, see, I could go either. I mean, Jay, you say you prefer the home proctored. I mean, I did a few exams a few years back, and I did the exam center ones. Really kind of helps put a lens on your mind. So there is that aspect to it. If that's something that you can kind of work to, then absolutely go for that. You can sort of soon check, see where your nearest exam center is. But with the online exams, you're going to be they're going to require photographs of the environment. So it's very, very important that for the integrity of the exam, and for everybody else who are taking exams, that that you're not kind of cheating, or there's no cheating going on. So additional monitors, they need to be covered up and disconnected. Any TVs in the room, I mean, these kind of things are they do check this. Your camera and visibility needs to be squarely on your face, and there needs to be nothing on the walls with any writing or anything like that. So a whiteboard with answers to exam, it's just not going to fly. They're going to pick up on that straight away. The other thing to bear in mind is the room needs to be completely empty at all times and the door shut if possible. The only time I think my door would be open is if I had the house to myself. But yeah, if they see anybody else, it's disqualification, unfortunately. There have been many horror stories over the years on different forums, including Reddit and so on, where people have just been caught out like this, and it's just been such a shame that it's kind of been a wasted effort. You do have some options though. If there's a problem, there is a chat button in the actual program on your computer, so you can actually interact with the invigilator. Yeah, so it's not like you're very isolated and you have no way to communicate with them. I think on my last exam they did call me because they had a question about my desk. I'm quite fortunate. I've got 3 monitors on my desk, and they wanted to make sure that I disconnected everything, which was a massive pain in the backside for me because
it's an interesting one as well. I actually had an exam once where the lab had a problem and I had to use the chat feature to ask them just to assist me, and they reset the lab for me. So the home proctored, whilst there are a few more steps in terms of setup of your own area that you need to jump through, if like me you're not wanting the travel, you're not wanting to go anywhere, it's just a few things you need to consider. Yeah, but the big one is obviously nobody can enter that testing space. It's also interesting as well in I think the last year-ish, I think. Don't quote me on that. You'll have to do your own homework. But there is also a take a break feature where you can actually pause the exam and then come back to the questions that you haven't got to yet. So you're not allowed to go back to questions you've already answered. But if, for example, you need a comfort break or you need to go and top your water up or whatever it may be, you can use that feature to pause the exam. So it stops the exam at that point in time. I believe you do then go back through the check-in. It's not a feature I've used myself, but that's there just to make things a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more accommodating for people. Just before we move on, usual stuff on this. When you book a home proctored exam, there is a test you can run. Also, do check all the information that's sent to you. We're sort of recalling this from memory and some of our experience, but things may have changed, so do just check that guidance as well. So a few tips. That is exactly what I would look like, albeit with a lot more hair. If I was driving to the test center, I just, it would stress me out, and I much prefer the home proctored as a result. So if you are going to a test center, though, you need to be thinking about that. Fuel, travel, traffic, weather, where am I going to park, what time's my train, that sort of stuff. And planning that out in advance will take some of that stress away. Home proctored. So if you're going for that approach, pick a suitable room, you're not going to be disturbed, run the test, make sure any technical aspects are there, and follow the guidance that's sent to you to do that. If you need a drink, have one with you. I've got a nice clear glass here with water in it. That's something that's worth doing, and particularly when I'm when I'm in full thought mode, I tend to drink a lot more water than I realize. Also, piece of advice, have a comfort break before the exam. You don't want to get caught out in the middle of your exam, but you can use that take a break feature if required. I'll let you cover this one, Steve, if that's all right.
I knew it would happen at one point. I started talking, and
I can't get through the Teams call without
I really can't. No, it's got to be done. So the closing thoughts. I mean, and this is just like personal experience. I have found that minimizing stress on the day of the exam is quite important. As you ramp up towards the exam day, you might be the kind of person that is quite consistent. You might be the sort of person like me. You start cramming more and more and more. It's important on the day of the exam you rest. Don't do anything. Let your brain relax a little bit. Like everything else, it's a muscle. Flex it too much, you're going to start second guessing yourself. And I've been there and I've done it. I dare say you have as well, Jake. It's very important. Don't overthink that moment. Just focus on getting to the test center. You'll have a full 90 minutes or 120 minutes to kind of rack your brains over the questions that are there, but don't overdo it on the day. Very important. So don't study, don't revise. Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, but it really does. It really does make a difference.
It's my favorite post-exam thing is if I do an exam and I pass, I always like to get a walk afterwards, just for 30 minutes. You know, you're normally after an exam, you're at 100%. You've been focused. Just getting 30 minutes afterwards, either to say, right, that didn't go to plan, and here's what I'm going to do, or it did go to plan. I'm very happy, and I'm going to, treat myself to a chocolate bar or whatever. That's normally my go-to. But yeah.
I think to be fair, this highlights just another thing. It's like, everybody's learning journey is different. Everybody's relaxation journey is different. Mine is alcohol. If I pass an exam, I'm going to have a drink that evening. I feel like I've earned it. So yeah.
Really, really good point as well from John. You get 30 minutes. To check into the exam, use that time, to get through the process, to take the pictures, to make sure, don't wait to the end of that check-in period and then start the check-in process. Use that time. Another really good point from D as well, schedule it for a time you're going to focus. If you want to do it late, if you want to do it early, whatever time works for you. Really, really focus on that. Just a couple of other things from us. Got some resources. I'll paste these into the chat in a second. But just some guidance. And then just thank you. Happy to take any other questions anybody has. But thank you for listening, and hope you found that useful.
Yeah, thanks guys. No, awesome stuff as always, Jake and Steve. Great to have you on as well on this session. I think we've all got our own personal stories of exams, and it's great to kind of impart some of the knowledge, because it does change. Like, one of the things I remember is that somebody mentioned in the chat about speaking the questions out, and I know a lot of us do that, right? When you read
That's
something,
true.
I've got a habit of kind of reading on the screen and mouthing the words, and when you do the remote, the invigilator comes on and says, "Stop mouthing the words." You can't do, and it shocked me at the time. I think there's been a lot of those kind of stories, so they're always good to get out in the open, and everybody can kind of learn from them.
I'm the same, and I wish that's the one thing I'm not so keen on for home proctors is I like to scribble, and I like to write things down. And obviously for home proctors you can only use, I believe, the virtual whiteboard, whereas I think in a test center you get given a known blank piece of paper and a pen. So that's something to bear in mind if you do like to scribble and draw things out.
Yeah, no, absolutely valid points. And I remember, like, both in person and remote, you've got the ability to flag questions as well. And one of the things that I would do, if there's a question that you're not 100% sure of, flag it, and then you get a chance at the end to kind of go back and look at those questions. It's that whole thing of read the question and move on quickly to make sure you answer them all in the time, because I'd run out of time as well.
I have as well. I've actually had a scenario where I flagged a question for myself to go back to because I couldn't work it out, and then in reading and working out another question, I answered in my own head the question I'd flagged, 100%. And it actually was like, it was a proper eureka, I should go back to that question moment. So it's well worth doing.
There will be sections in there as well around about things like, this section, you have to answer them. It's somewhat like a quick fire round. You can't go back once you've answered that question, because the answer to the next question the question following this one might be giving you the answer to the previous question. So just make sure you read all the guidance and just have your wits about you, really, and save yourself missing out on case study. Nearly done that. I thought, I was done. I had 15 minutes spare. It's like, great. And then I realized I had a whole case study to go. I was like, no.
Have they brought back? I know at one stage over COVID, I know they scrapped the whole lab exercises, because there was a point. Do you know if they brought those back now? I've not done an exam for a while.
I'm not too sure. Yeah,
I think somebody in our team. I think somebody in my team had a lab. I think it was Tony. And he had a lab in one of his exams, but he said he'd sort of gone in like very prepared, so he was kind of quite comfortable with it. But
I have to confess, I really like the labs. I find them I like the similarity to what I've been doing to revise for the exam. I find sometimes the theory questions I struggle to take the text and apply it to what I was doing visually in the portal or doing in code or something like that. But the ones I have had labs I've enjoyed, because it's like, I'm building something now. Or
it's
I'm
like the applied
something.
skills. If you've seen the applied skills on Microsoft Learn, you get that.
Yeah.
You used to get it in the exams going back before COVID, and I did hear something that because they scrapped it, I think, because of the resources, because everybody went to do online, and it sounds strange, but I remember the test centers being, they only had like 1024 resolution, and the labs used to pop up really terribly. You know, the
That's
viewport
right.
was
All the
crammed
scroll
into
bars.
really awkward
Yeah.
window. So it was a really bad experience. So I did hear they were meant to be bringing them back, but I haven't sat an exam for a little while now, so I don't know if. So yeah, it might be a case that there may be some exams that have got labs back now, which isn't not a bad thing. It's just if I would go and have a look at some of those applied skills, because they are very much lab doing orientated rather than just memorizing answers or trying to work out questions, right? But yeah, another good point from David there. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Don't let
Yeah.
them expire. You get and that's a valid point actually, because it's a really good renewal process. I find is that you get to renew with an open book, or is it 20, 25
That's right.
questions every year, something like that.
Yeah.
You do normally get quite a lot of notice. I think it's something
6
like
months.
6 months.
Yeah,
I have a rule that email does not get marked as unread in my inbox until and I'm one of the inbox zero type of people. So I just see an inbox as a list of jobs to do. So as soon as I get that, it does not get marked unread until I've done the reset.
Or if they go into your junk mail, always log on to your Learn account and
check
quickly,
it.
because they can normally come up there somewhere if you've got some renewals. Go and make sure you don't let them expire. It's a really bad thing. I've managed to not let any of mine expire, other than the ones that have naturally expired, if you know what I mean. It's no good luck, guys. Really appreciate the talk. Thank you as always. Great session. I think it's a lot of
welcome.
Useful information there that people can take away and hopefully go and, like I said to Steve at the start, I've been contemplating doing that 102, the AI exam. Hey, why not? It's the age of AI now, right?
I cannot recommend that course enough. It is brilliant.
I actually started it before I joined Microsoft. I started doing all the prep work around all the cognitive services and all the different AI. It's obviously pre-open AI, so I'm sure there's a lot of changes in there now since I started to look at it. But
it's my brain's been hurting, put it that way. But that's good, right? It
wouldn't be an exam unless your brain hurt, right? That's the thing. But okay, look, guys, thank you very much. If everybody wants to show your appreciation to Jake and Steve with the little react button, it's what we do in this day and age, isn't it? But no, honestly, thank you, guys, and feel free to stick around, join the quiz as always. We'll have that after George's session now. But on that note, George, I can see you waiting in the wings. Nice to meet you, sir. Thank you for joining us. More than happy.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, I'll just hand straight over to you. Feel free. I might actually have to make you a presenter, so if you bear with me 1 second. There we go. You should be good to go now.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Jake. I think it was a really nice presentation. So I'm also looking forward to see what new certifications comes out from Microsoft. So which is more AI specific, right? Like agentic AI, MCPs and stuff like that. So
valid points. I think it's interesting to see there's a lot of Azure exams, compared to all the other areas of Microsoft at the minute. So you're right, George. I'm sure there's going to be some more specific exams around AI with the advent of all the new technologies.
Let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Got you. There we are. I'll hand it over to you. Thanks, George.
Thanks, John. So it will not be as interesting as the previous presentation. So I'll just walk you through what we have done here. So I'm George. I am like an engineering manager, engineer architect, enterprise architect at a company called Check. So what I will just tell you what Check does. Check is more like into the edtech space. So we used to do a lot of Q&A kind of things. So any student who has any questions, they can come to our site. If they have a subscription, they can ask a question. We used to give them a step-by-step answer. So we grew a lot during COVID times because I think everybody was at home. But post-COVID, with all the chat GPT, all the new products that came out, right? Everybody's giving Q&A, right? Answers to the question. So things have changed a lot. So, but I think as we grew, I think we built a lot of this engineering effort into building this different systems in our system. So I will just walk you through what we have done and then how we sort of moved from AWS or from our legacy into more on the Azure space. So I'm not an expert on all the Azure services, but like because I'm like this was like one of the first projects that we did on Azure because we were like more on AWS stack. So I will try to compare a little bit on AWS and Azure like as we go through, and I will try to focus a little bit more on the payment side of things. But like subscriptions, a lot of these things are like interrelated. So I will touch upon most of those things. And I will try to keep it like short so that like we can go to the quiz part right later. So coming to the agenda, like we will begin by looking at the challenges that are unique to the subscription economy. Then I'll show you like how we architected this scalable and intelligent system on Azure. We will also dive a little bit onto like what are the analytics things that we did, like automated dunning process that we did, and then some of those metrics after like what we have done with the project, right? Like I just walk you through those. So this is pretty much the agenda. So coming on to subscription economy, right? So I think if you look at the enterprise landscape now, I think everybody's doing subscriptions. So there is not a company who is not doing subscription, right? Everybody wants to go subscription. So even take the case of Microsoft, right? Like they had all this what you call downloadable products, which used to be like buy one time and then that you can use it like any time, right? But then as businesses have found out like, okay, subscription is the way to go. Everything is like monthly subscription or an annual subscription, right? Or a quarterly, right? Like that's the model that everybody has got. So it's not only limited to B2C, it's also like on the B2B space, right? Like everybody is looking at what is the MRR or like monthly recurring revenue that they are going to get from any of the product that they are selling. So if you look at these numbers, right, like so subscription has grown like so much over the past few years, right? And then the amount of revenue that it generates is so high that like every company is really focused on it, right? And anybody who's also funding new startups or new companies also look at what is your recurring revenue, right? So that's where I think the focus has been from all the company perspective. So coming on to like what we were trying to solve is like there is like when you are a subscriber, there is always that lost revenue, right? Which we are not able to collect from the customer. So like Check is like a B2C business. So we have customers who come in who buy a subscription, but after a point of time, like the card may not be having enough funds or like the card would have expired, right? Like then at some point of time when we try to collect the money, we are not able to, and then we lose them as a customer. So I think what we try to solve is like, how can we get that lost revenue, right? And then the amount like of that lost revenue due to this involuntary churn, if we are able to collect it, it runs into millions, right? So that's where I think always business tries to look at how we can increase the revenue. This is one thing that we can always do. So I'll also try to focus on this one. So what are the things that critical to a business, right? So why does the churn happen? So churn happens because there are systems like in each company which are like very inefficient, right? Like so usually what happens like the most of the companies have like a static retry. So like okay, first time we tried to collect the money, like we were not able to, right? So then they may be retrying after 5 days or 10 days or 15 days, right? And then they will say, okay, I'm not able to collect the money in 10 days, let's cancel the subscription, right? So then that subscriber is lost. But maybe the subscriber may be coming back after 11th day or something, and then may not be see like why you don't know why the subscription was cancelled, right? So there is that thing. So like take the case of my company, right? Like so what we do is like our customer base is more college students, so they work on like weekly wages or like hourly wages, right? So what happens is like so whenever we try, we have to be really aware of like what is our customer base, right? And then where do they get paid, right? Like those are the things which we really need to really think about when we are trying to collect or like try to optimize this process, right? So okay, to reduce the involuntary churn. So one of the things that we have to always think about is like traditional system doesn't have this. So how can we really build those things in, right? And then scalability limitations, right? Like a lot of this systems, like if you are a company very focused on one country, it's okay. Right? But when you are like a global company, like you need to have that infrastructure, right? To like sort of scale it across multiple geos and based on the patterns in different geos, right? So the way that you collect money in US may not be the same as in UK, right? Or in Europe. So every country has their own different way of doing things. So, and the compliance is also an issue, right? Like you cannot really keep retrying a card or like keep having the particular payment information of a customer for a long time, right? You have to make sure if there are like GDPR or PCI compliance requirements, then we are sort of making sure we don't store any of those information in an unprotected database or systems, right? Like it has to be like really compliant, right? So that's why people always think about like having a payment process like Braintree, Stripe, or RDN, right? Like who are really sort of compliant on all the PCI guidelines. And like feel free to stop me, like, and if you have anything, like we can always discuss on that, and then we can move forward. So this is a slide of commerce architecture. So there's a lot of pieces in here. So I've tried to like bring in both B2C and B2B into this sort of architecture diagram. So on the right side, you can see, right, like any things that you like product catalog, then you need to have checkout process, then you need like a subscription, you have a subscription management, and then you have this concept of billing and invoicing, right? So once you have this, like you invoice a customer and then you collect the payment, right? Like, and then you have all this payment ecosystem. So I've given a little bit more importance to payment system because that's where I think we were trying to really focus on, right? So payments also like has like multiple processes. There's a tokenizer process, which is like whenever you have a payment method, you tokenize the payment method, right? And then that's how you interact with multiple payment processes. And payment dunning is sort of a process where you're trying to collect the money because the first attempt to collect the payment was not successful. On like if you see all the on the downside, you can see all the different systems that commerce as a shared platform will interact with, right? Like you have identity management, access management, fraud risk, because with the credit cards and all, the fraud is really high risk. There are chances that your credit card is stolen and then people are trying to buy the subscription and try to sell it at a lower price. So that's one of the issues. Other thing is like they try to do credit card testing. So they try to go in and buy some $1 product or like try to authorize and then see, oh, is the card working? Is it a proper card, right? And then once they know that it's a proper card, they'll sort of sell it for a higher price, right? On outside market or black market. So most of like what you call the customers who have like a site, people will be like having this risk issue due to fraud because people are always doing like this different card testing. So you have to be really aware of, because what we do is like, okay, some days like the subscription shoots up like anything, right? That is like an anomaly. So then we start looking at, okay, maybe like 50% of the transactions were fraud. So we'll have to work through all those things to sort of make sure like we are protected against that, right? So these are the things that which we really consider from a B2C standpoint. For a B2B company, I think it's a little bit more straightforward because there are contracts that are done in CRM systems to the customer, and then we are doing subscription management or invoicing on top of it, and there some models are usage based, right? So, but there is not really a need of a payment funding process there because I think most of the customers will pay up, right? Because they are enterprise customers. So going on to the way that we thought about building this in the Azure framework, right? So I think most of people are familiar, right? Because you guys are all experts on Azure. So like what we thought about as like splitting it up into different layers from an architecture perspective, and each layer is responsible for doing very specific things, right? So anything that we have, like you need like an API gateway layer, right? So that's a given thing. Because as you know, like most of the companies are right now trying to restrict access to the data, and the best way to do is using an API gateway, right? Because you can always throttle request, you can always block the request, and you can always like monetize your APIs, right? So that's a good thing with the API gateway. So that's the sort of the entry point, and like the security wise, also you have like different policies that you can apply there. Coming to the application services, that's the platform as a service, right? That Azure is offering you, so that it helps you the deployment. You don't have to worry about scaling, like all those things are taken care for you out of the box. So coming to microservices, I think our architecture used a lot of microservices so that like we are able to scale those services as needed, right? So when the boxes I showed in the previous screen, I think all of them were like developed as like microservices, so that like each service is responsible for only is specific functions, right? And then it's easy to scale. So that's the whole idea for that. And then we use like Azure container apps, and like we also use a little bit of like logic apps for all the asynchronous downstream processing. So what it really helps is like to sort of orchestrate the different flows, right? So in the case say there is an event that gets created called like order placed, right? Like so there are different actions that are associated with those event, right? Like so, like say once an order is placed, you have to make sure the subscription is created. You have to make sure like we send out an email to the customer to say, okay, you have placed a placed an order, and then these are the details, right? So all those things can be done asynchronously using like a orchestration framework or like a workflow, and that's where I think Azure Logic App sort of really was a good fit for us. On the data layer, I think we had a lot of RDBMs, like relational databases, and that's where Azure like SQL databases were used. And for the catalog and other NoSQL kind of data, we used Cosmos DB. The Redis cache is like all used in most of the services where we really needed what you call high volume of transactions were there. I think we tried to cache the data like same like we had caching on different APIs where we were pulling in like order information, right? So that we don't have to really go to the DB to get all the order information, which doesn't change a lot, like order history information kind of thing. Coming to the payment processing, I think we try to make sure like we use the Azure Key Vault and all, where like I think all the secrets were kept as secrets, and then it's compliant, right? Like so that's why we used. We had a lot of third-party integrations with like Braintree, Stripe, add-in kind of processes. So we had to make sure that we have all those integrations built into those services as well. Coming to the messaging queue and event streaming, I think we wanted to leverage a lot of this third-party partners use webhooks kind of event notification. So like say something happened within their system, like a payment was collected. So there will be an event for that, right? And the subscription is renewed, there is an event for that. So all these communications happens through a webhook notification. And that's where I think we wanted to make sure we have like an API that is exposed to them using gateway. And then we have behind the scene like the service bus or like event grid, right? Which can get those messages, and then internally we can get those events from the event grid, and then process it as we are like convenient for us, right? So that we are not really overloading any of the backend system, right? Because there may be legacy systems, or like there can be like SaaS applications who have like throttling limits, rate limits. So in those cases, I think it's always good to have this message layer where we can get all those messages in, events in, and then we can process them at the later point of time. So other things that we have used is like Azure Functions. It's more like a Lambda concept, right? Like so AWS Lambdas as like a concept. So these are like less costly, and then these are like very specifically to like just process that event, right? So if you have some function which needs to like limit the functionality, right? Like okay, just I want to get this event, I want to do one action. I think this Azure functions are really good, right? So they are not running all the time. Only when the event comes, they are triggered. They live for that duration of when they need to execute, and then they sort of die off, right? So that's what the benefit that brings and the cost savings that it brings, so that we don't have to really have a container running all the time, right? So that's where I think Azure functions are a real good fit for us. The service bus I already told you, like so it's a mix of bus and Azure functions, which can sort of help you make sure that the messages are reliably stored, and then we don't lose any messages, right? And we are able to process them. The database, I think, is a critical piece, right? Because that's where all the data is there, and then it sort of helps us build any of this analytics or data on top of it, right? So I think so that sort of becomes our a core backend to store all the information. So this slide I put in just to make sure like we are aware of like what are things that are really needed from a payment standpoint, right? Like we have to have like an encrypted data transmission. We have to like tokenize the payment data. So whenever there's a credit card information, it's a PCI compliant data, right? So usually the recommendation is not to store any of this information on the company's servers or systems, right? So usually how the tokenization happens is like there will be like a what you call a front end component that is sort of provided by, say, Stripe, Braintree, or Recurly, or like Zora, right? Any of these systems, they will have their own tokenization mechanism, and that's what each of these websites will be using, right? So that that information is sort of sent to them directly, and they are the one responsible for all the PCI compliance. So that way, we are like the companies are off the hook and not worrying about this information, right? So that's why the tokenization of the payment card is really important. And then we only keep the what you call the token ID or whatever is needed, right, on our side, just so that like we can tell them, okay, charge the this token ID or the payment method, right, which is associated with this token ID. Then this is like pretty much, I think, the standard things that we do from a security standpoint. Okay, so coming back to this retry system, right? So I think so our focus was mainly on this subscription cancellation that happens without customer really canceling the subscription, right? So that's what we were trying to focus, right? So I think for us, the initial retry attempts when we do, right, on each billing renewal cycle, we used to get around 80% success. So that 20% was the failure rate. Like for all those 20% customers, each day we were not able to collect the money on the initial attempt. So what we tried to do is like we initially created like a static retry mechanism. And what it did is like we had a 20-day retry cycle where we were trying to collect the money, and then we used to give them free access, right? So from a company standpoint, like we were giving them access because we just wanted to keep the customer, right, on our site. So sometimes that sort of opens it up for fraud, right? So Apple App Store has a different mechanism. So they do like a with access retry for like 5 days or like 10 days, it's configurable. And after that, they do a retry without access for like close to 60 days. So that's even though we don't know, behind the scenes, Apple is trying to collect the money for that. And once Apple is able to collect the money, it will like regrant access to that, right? Like it will recreate the subscription for that. So it's called like restore subscription in Apple terms. So everyone is doing the same thing, right? But I think each company needs to look at like what is their customer base and then sort of try to see how we can do, right? And the way to do that is like to start with static C, and then how can we improve it? And then we will get a pattern of, okay, hey, if we are trying at different timelines and then different times, that if it's going through, right? So one of the like learnings that we got from all this experimentation was like, usually Wednesday to Saturday are like good days for payment retries, whereas Monday, Tuesday has like lower success rate, right? Because usually people get paid on Friday. So that's like mid to end of the week is where they get paid. So that's where I think we found like more success rate, right? So it's a trial and error. And right nowadays, I think we also like move to the AI models, which can be used for this, right? So another challenge with like the payment retry problem is, like say Visa, MasterCard, right? Like these are like big chains who doesn't allow people to retry for like unlimited time. So they always have what you call they will sort of put you on a wait list if you keep retrying on hard declines and stuff like that. So that's where it's really important for us to make sure like we only retry when it's really needed, right? Like so that like we have to limit the number of retries we do on these payment methods. So so this is how like this is so this screen just shows you like how some ways of like trying to do the retry mechanism, right? And other thing on this retry mechanism that we really loved is like having this dunning process of trying to see, okay, can we reach out to the customer and then see if they are willing to add a new card, right? Because if the other card is cancelled or like it had some fraud issue, then they would have got a new card, right? So this is like something that we try to do, and this also like had a lot of experimentation done. So we looked at like the history of the customer to see whether they have been paying for, or with us for a longer time, right? And then is there any tweaking that we can do on the retry schedule? And then after 4 or 5 days, can we send them an email to say, okay, this is like you will lose access, and can you update a new payment method, right? Or if they are coming onto the site, it's good. We can always show them a pop-up. But if they're not there, I think the emailing is the only option. And we have seen like good success rates with like people coming back and updating the payment methods. But this is also like something that's not always successful, right? So that's where I think payment retry schedules on like different cycles are like something that we always have as like a backup to this thing. And I think like for this logic apps is like a good option where I think we can define a workflow on when to retry and do like recovery on those payment methods. So coming back to right, so I think I also talked about like AI models, right? Like so that's where I think finally like so we had like initially when we started we had like static policy for US, for UK, like different countries, right? But it was not really scaling well. So if US had like 80% success rate, like the success rate for international countries were around 70. So it was also not because each country has their own different mechanism, right? Like so that's why we wanted to make sure like we are able to build a model which can look at the geo location and then look at the different success patterns from different geos, and based on that schedule it like automatically, right? Once a failure happens. So that's when I think we build like a predictive analytics model where it can look at the decline analysis, look at the decline codes from these processes and identify whether it's soft errors or hard errors, and then based on that also look at the customer, right? And then say like how many cards do they have on the system? Are there any other external things, right? Like, okay, what is their profile and all, and then sort of see like how we can make it more intelligent. So this is something that is an always learning, because we right, once you have an AI model, you have to make sure it doesn't deviate a lot, right? It doesn't cause more issues than that we intended to, right? So because with static, we know this is going to be retried at this time, but with this thing, it will be giving a random date and time where I think we try, and then we have to make sure that success is always there. Right? So there is always this training of models that we have to do, which is a pain, but I think that's something that when the reward, right, like that of getting so much of payment success rates sort of is more better than sort of like we the effort put here, right? So that's where I think we always like love the AI model with like, but it needs a little bit more hand holding, trying to make sure we are keeping track on the numbers, trying to look at like how it doesn't deviate much or the model is not going the wrong way. So that's where I think like there is that sort of dashboards and stuff that we try to monitor. Okay, so this is like a case study. I think I wanted to show like how it happened, right? Like, so we were able to like sort of bring down this involuntary churn rate from 15 to 8. So that's something that we had done. And then before the implementation, we didn't really have like a lot of vector points on this, so that like we were really like just trying to blindly do retries, right? But I think then after the implementation, we are trying to do a little bit more intelligent, and with all these AI things, I think we have tried to keep on doing more things as needed, right? So and then like obviously like with all this infrastructure changes that we have done, I think we are also able to like cut down on the cost that we were like earlier incurring. And like these are some of the system metrics I wanted to put out there. So I think before like the success rate was 85% after the retries, but after we started doing more of this intelligent retries and all, we were able to like successfully get to 94%. So like still like that 6% we are not able to collect every cycle, but at least like this is a big number that we were able to get to, right? So that's the thing. The latency also, like there was a lot of improvements there. The uptime also, like because of the platform. The cost per transaction. So because I think the more we are able to get, I think that we are able to like negotiate with all this Visa, MasterCard payment networks, right? So that like because I think we were like in the wait list, and we were also going to be fined a lot of money, like, and that's where I think we tried to make sure like we are becoming more aware of like what can be retried and what should not be, right? Like, so those are the things that we have done here. And then these are like some of the benefits that came across with that implementation. So key takeaways, I think I just wanted to conclude with this. I think I think like any cloud platform, right? Like an Azure, including Azure, I think like if you know the framework, you know what are the components that are really needed to build your system. I think it's always better to sort of go in and try to use what is best for each use case, right? So because we have used most of the differences, like what you call things are available from Azure, right? Like just to make sure like we are able to make make the best use of for each use case, right? So that's the thing. And then with that, because I think it's easy to sort of design things in Azure, like, but I think we also have to be aware of like how much money we are spending on it, right? So that's something that we have to always be aware. So if there are like APIs and all which needs to be available all the time, it's always to have like a container service, right? But whereas if there are more event-based services, and then like sometimes it may be only like those events are triggered during midnight, then you don't have to run those services like throughout the day, right? So it's all like thinking about like where we can save the money, how we can really effectively bring in efficiency in the systems, right? So that's something that we have to always take care of when you are designing things, and it's an iterative process, right? You don't get it right at the first time, right? So it's always iterative, because when we were growing a lot, we like spent like anything. We had all these like different systems. We had different geos of like making sure like the system doesn't go down, right? But as and when the business started becoming slow, like we started looking at how we can be more efficient, right? So there is like the pros and cons. It can go both ways, right? But I think then you can only throw money at a problem for such a long time, right? At some point, I think we have to look at that, what we can do. And then, like, as you all know, right, like you have to be on top, like use AI for anything that you are building, right? So, and that's something that will always help you, like, and then we need to know, right, like involve the right folks, right? Like if there are ML engineers needed, then try to get to work with them, and then make sure like you have a solution which can scale, right? And put in all the guardrails, right? Because that's what I was saying, like you need to always think about like look at dashboards and say, are we deviating a lot? And then if not, then I think we need to. So we always had this backup plan, right? Like it's just like, okay, if the model is not working properly, let's just go to the static or whatever we had before, right? So it's always like a experimentation kind of, right? A/B testing kind of platform where like we go with this model, but then if it doesn't work, you always need to have a fallback option, right? So that you are not like completely dependent on this like a model which has not been delivering well, right? So that's where I think you have to always make sure like we have a balance. And then the security compliance is like an important thing when it comes to like any of those enterprise systems and payments, especially. So you have to make sure like you work with vendors who are really like certified, or you can really rely on them, so that like you don't get hit with all this what you call hacking and other things, right? So that's why I think you just have to make sure like you do right by the customer or like the system. So yeah, that's pretty much what I had in mind, like at least I had prepared for. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for guys for listening in. So I'm open for any Q&A if you guys have any.
No, great stuff. Thank you, George. Yeah, no, it's really, really insightful kind of view on how we work through the project. So no, thanks for coming on, giving up your time. I can't see any questions in the chat at the moment, but yeah, like I say, George, this session's recorded anyway, so you know, if I do occasionally, I'll get some questions through anyway, so I'll be sure to hook anybody up with you. But no, really appreciate that. Really appreciate the talk. Look, if everybody wants to show their appreciation, thank you, George. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and look, feel free to stick around now. We'll do the quiz. Oh, Mark, is that you? Yeah, is that you hitting the hands up button instead of the react button like everybody else does? I'm assuming so. Look, if there are any questions, fire them in the chat now for George. But meanwhile, if everybody's ready, we'll head straight on into the quiz and we'll wrap up this evening's session. So yeah, thank you very much, George. Appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. And stick around now as we do the quiz as well. Feel free to jump in. Right, bear with. Then let me just quickly share my screen and head over to. There we go. Everybody should hopefully be seeing my screen. So we've only got a few questions. I think we've got 10 questions now, and we'll do, I think, a top prize, a winner of a £25 Amazon voucher. So if you want to scan the QR or head on over to quizzer.co.uk and type in that code, hopefully as you join, I should see you appear. Give it a few minutes for everybody to head on over. There we go. We got Paul on. How many of us are there? There's 9 or 10 of us. So Give us a shout if you're struggling to join or anything like that. But like I say, I've used Mr. Fatunka's new feature add-in of Copilot defined questions, so should be quite interesting to see what we get. Any more joining? There we go. Give it another minute or two. We should, I think, get about 7 or 8 folks on. So if you're struggling, shout. Good chance to win a prize in today's session. Any more? Can we make a start? Speak now or forever hold your peace. No. Okay, well look, there's 5 of us in there. Let's make a start in that case then. So we'll do a top prize, first place, £25 Amazon voucher. Oh, there we go, you're in. Is there any more now? Are we all done? I'll take silence as golden. Right, let's make a start then. Let's go for it. Here we go. Okay, which Azure certification is best suited for individuals who manage cloud services, including storage, security, and networking? Like I say, these are AI generated questions and answers, so this may or may not fit onto your devices. The answers I'm not following along myself, but there we go. So Azure Admin Associate, Simon was the fastest. Next up, we've got which Azure service is primarily used for scalable cloud storage of unstructured data? Okay, well, we've got everybody got that one right. Blob storage. Next question, what's the primary purpose of an Azure load balancer? Some interesting questions that it fired up this time round. B. Okay, not everybody got that one, but well done to those that did. Next up, what is Azure Front Door primarily used for? Everybody got that one right. Well done all. Next up, what is the primary function of Azure Firewall's intrusion prevention system? And apologies that answer A isn't fitting in the button, but I'm sure you can all work that one out. There we go. Which Azure certification focuses on designing and implementing cloud-native solutions for data-related tasks? Should be straightforward. It's all about the fastest finger. There we go. Well done, Simon. Fastest on that one again. Which of the following is a key component of Azure Security Certification expertise? Again, should hopefully be fairly straightforward. Ooh, D, you got the fastest on that one. Next question is, what does Azure Sovereignty primarily focus on? Yeah, I think got to shorten those answers somehow. Got to get some validation, and I'll have a chat with Matt about that one. Ensuring data residency, I think, is a top one. There we go. You all managed to read it anyway. Good. Next up, what is the primary purpose of Azure Web Application Firewall, WAF? Again, long answers. Everyone got that one as well. D fastest again. Next question. What does the SC900 exam primarily focus on? Simon, fastest on that one as well. Next question. Oh, no, next question. We've got a winner. Simon, you are the winner. Congratulations. £25 Amazon voucher for you. Simon, do you want to drop me your email and I will obviously get that arranged and sent over to you? Sorry, dear, I just read that AZ500 course, I believe. The answers are very, yeah, sorry about that. I'll have a chat with Matt and see if we can get some validation to make sure that they fit in there. But I think most people got the general gist by the looks of it. But yeah, well done, Simon. Do you want to pop me over your email just as a little prompt, and I'll get that sorted out for you over the next day or so. Okay, bear with then. Let me just reshare the slide deck, and we shall bring the session to a close for this month. So yeah, look, thank you everybody for joining. As always, really appreciate everybody's time to come on and spend a couple of hours just getting to hear a good couple of talks. And yeah, I think we've done well again this month with Jake and Steve's talk on how to ace those Azure exams. Certainly a bit of a refresh from my perspective as well, but hopefully inspiring a few to take a few more exams. And then thanks again to George for coming on and talking us through building that resilient payment subscription service on Azure. It's really interesting stuff, so really appreciate that as well. And look, thank you everybody for joining. Save the date for the next talk. We're going to be looking at the 20th of August. We'll see how we get on because we know we're in holiday season there. So we'll see what we can do there. But 20th of August is the date penciled in at the moment, and I'll get that announced fairly soon. But look, thank you everybody for joining. Have a good rest of the evening, and we'll catch up next month. Thanks for now. Cheers all. Bye.